I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. Was super excited for UFC 214. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. Jon Jones is back, man.
No, he is back, dude.
Jon Jones is back. What did you think about his return just in general? And then what did you think about the actual fight itself, Cormier versus Jones 2?
Well, I mean, I was excited for his return. I was a bit ambivalent about his return just because, he got kind of, honestly, I'm going to put it bluntly, he got kind of boring for a while. But he came back with a bang, man. I think he came back with a bang. He looked super focused. He looked super ready, like back to his old self, like in the early days, Jon Jones type of thing. And then the fight itself was awesome. I thought it was a great fight. A lot of people said it was very one-sided. I think if you just look at the knockout, then it's very one-sided. But if you're watching the whole match, I think it was a great fight.
Yeah, I don't see how people could say it was one-sided. If anything, I think Cormier was, let's say this, Jones was landing more, but Cormier did a whole hell of a lot better during this fight than he did in the last one. And I mean, up until he got knocked out.
Yeah, it was competitive. The last fight was Jones kind of cruising by on point. And I think, honestly, both guys looked bad in the last one. But this one, I think, and I don't know whether that played into Jones's game a little bit better. I wouldn't call Jones a counter-striker, but it might be that because DC was going for the win and going for the knockout, and he was really going for the knockout, he was throwing some big shots, some big wild shots, that might have played into Jones's being able to get the finish, whereas he couldn't in the first fight.
Well, I just read an article that Frank Mir put out. I don't know if you've seen this, but apparently this whole thing, all the way starting from their first fight, was a part of a giant master plan on Jones's part. So basically the gist of the article was this. Frank Mir was saying that Jones had brought him in to prep for Cormier for the first fight that they had. And Jones was asking Cormier about something concerning the guillotine. It was like, oh, okay, this is something I can use, as a setup. And Frank Mir was like, yeah, you could finish him with this. To which Jones was like, no, I'm not going to finish him with this. And there was some misunderstanding, like what? Are you not trying to win the fight? Like, what's going on? And Jones's response was, no, I don't want to end the fight quickly for this one. I want to mentally break him. I don't want to knock him out. And I don't want to tap him out. I want to take him all the way to the end and beat him at his own game. Because if I end him quickly, in his head, he'll always have the idea of, well, he got lucky, he caught me, as opposed to he beat me the entire time. And he goes, during the second one, I can knock him out or finish him quickly on that one. But this one, I want to drag him out all the way through. And he called it, man. He fucking did it.
Yeah, well, in the first fight, that.
Well, for both, like he dragged him out and beat him at his own game in the first fight, and then he ended it during the second fight, as he called it.
Yeah, that's not your average fighter's mentality, but I mean that's Jones. That makes sense. Yeah,
dude, that's like some real high level art of war, mental.
Well, they had a real good rivalry.
Oh yeah, the rivalry was amazing.
There was a lot of personal shit going around, and there was two very different styles, and I mean you can see. I mean, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that post-fight antics, but Cormier's reaction was I think it was very memorable and dramatic in that. Because of the rivalry, because there was so much competition between Cormier and Jones, Cormier was devastated.
Yeah.
Utterly, he couldn't hold it together. That's just the tip of the iceberg, I'm sure it was even worse than that once he got backstage, that he just couldn't hold it in, and he said, look, I guess if I lose 2 fights, then there's no rivalry there. The guy's just beating me up, and the guy's just better than me, and that's tough for the more competitive among us to take. But it was, I mean, for for the observer. It's kind of cool to watch.
There's a lot there with that. So on one hand, obviously, you know, it's understandable. Like there's a serious beef. They genuinely hate each other. You know, this is his chance to shine. All these things are going in his favor. He's been gone. He's probably going to have ring rust. This is his first fight back. The first round or two, I'm looking really good. And then, bam, it's taken away. And I can understand how the lead up and everything you put into this, you know, can be devastating. So on a very just human being to human being level, that's understandable. And I think a lot of people felt that. But on another level, it's like, man, you couldn't have held it together till you got to the backstage, brother. You know, because like, let's look. Jones said, "I'm gonna make you cry again. You were my bitch. I made you cry on Cain Velasquez's shoulder, and I'm gonna make you cry again." And he did. He did.
When was the first time they did?
Yeah. He had him crying in the back on Cormier's shoulder. I mean, not Cormier, on Velasquez's shoulder.
Yeah. Oh shit. Damn.
And then and we've talked about this before, and I think this is also going to apply later on during the conversation when we talk about Tyron Woodley. But nobody likes a weak champion, and it may be unfair.
We did talk about this, didn't we? You called this actually.
Yeah.
You called this. Yeah.
And it's like, it might be an unfair expectation to some degree, because even if you're a champion or you're a leader or you're this or that, you're still a human being. You have human emotions. But the reality is, the majority of people are not sympathetic to a leader or an alpha or a champion or a hero who is perceived as being weak. And, you know, between his complaining in the first lead up between the two of them about, you know, he's a bad guy, how come you guys are rooting for him and not for me, and and then, I mean, let's be honest, man, Cormier just looked like a broken little boy, you know.
Yeah, he looked
like, it wasn't even like the dignified stoic cry where you like have the one tear. Like, it was ugly face cry.
It was full on. Yeah, it was full on.
What do you think about people getting upset at Joe Rogan for the interview after the fight?
Well, I think, you know what it is? Joe Rogan himself said, I think he was like the one of the only guys who really put this out there, like, that someone shouldn't be interviewed after a knockout. Mm-hmm. You know, they may be, you know, mildly or severely concussed. They're not in the right frame of mind. They're confused. They're bewildered. You wake up. You know, I've never been knocked out, but I've been choked out in competition. And you kind of wake up, and you know, it's a very disorienting experience, and I'm not sure that people should. I mean, it's great for the fans, but at least for the dude himself, I'm not sure that's good practice. I think it's probably a good idea not to, for the sake of the fighters, interview them after. And then Joe Rogan doubled back, and this was a bad knockout. This is not a light. And he was out, and he was back in again. He was. If you go back and watch, and I think anyone who's listening to this should go back and watch the knockout and the way Jones finished him. There was some huge ground and pound in there.
Oh yeah.
Like on the side of Cormier's head, like on the soft part of the head where we know that you're easily kind of, you know, you're kind of soft on that side. Mm-hmm. There was, you know, point being, long story short, Cormier was rocked hard. And it's just interesting decision by Joe Rogan. Of all the times to interview someone after they get knocked out, he decided that point. Having said that, it was good entertainment, and Cormier is a very emotional dude, and you know, from a purely entertainment standpoint, like a cynical entertainment standpoint, it made for good TV, honestly. So it depends on what angle you're coming from.
Right. I just
wonder why he chose that one.
Well, he did apologize. He made a public apology without anybody, like, you know, pressing him to do so. And he said it was kind of like just a spur of the moment. You know, he didn't really realize it until like he was like doing it. It was like, oh shit, well, I'm already here.
Yeah.
But like, and that was one of the things that he brought up was like, you know, this was my own rule that I broke. So that was, you know, that's kind of shitty. But here's, in his favor, I think there is an argument to be made for the fans and himself and anybody watching. Cormier was kind of flipping out. Like, Cormier was obviously concussed.
That's true.
And, you know, didn't know what happened. And he's like pushing Big John and he's yelling and shit's going on. And I know for sure, I'm like, what the fuck is Cormier tripping on? What did he think happened?
Knocked out fair and square, yeah. What was the beef? I see what you're saying, and with that in mind, it actually makes a bit more sense. Because I was confused. I was like, what is he tripping at? I understand that you're upset if you lose, but like, who are you mad at?
Right. And so I think
in the head, it was completely I mean, there was nothing even semi-illegal about it. It was the cleanest of knockouts you could ever want. And that's the game. That's the MMA. It's the sport you're in. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to some extent, I think Joe Rogan was like, okay, what's going on here? Like, why are you flipping out? And I wanted to know. So when he interviewed him, I was like, oh, good. Like, I'm going to get to find out, like, what the fuck he's tripping about. So I think that played into it. And like he said, by the time, like, he's like, oh, shit, that's right. I said I wasn't going to do this. He's already sitting there with a microphone in front of him. And it's kind of like, well, I'm here now. So, yeah, man.
Did Cormier say why he was tripping out? Was there any mention about why?
Apparently, so when he got hit, he didn't, he was unaware of what happens until he saw it on the screen. Like, he was unaware that he had got kicked in the head and like legitimately concussed until he looked up at the screen. And there's a point where Joe Rogan asks him something and he's like, what happened? And Cormier's like, well, I mean, I guess I got kicked, or apparently I got kicked in the head. Like, you can kind of hear it that this is not something that he was fully comprehending, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think in his head, like, they were going and then something happened and then he's kind of coming to on the ground and then there's the ref stopping it and he's like, wait, you understand what I'm saying?
Right, 100%. And just to paint that picture for people who haven't been in the ring or haven't been concussed or haven't been out before, you really, your short-term memory is gone. Like, it's probably hard for people to kind of get their head around it. Like, kind of like being drunk and just blacking out and then waking up, and you really don't know what happened. I think sometimes they ask these guys, like, what day of the week is it, or where are you, or, you know, sometimes even what's your name, and they really don't know. So it's a very, like, strange, surreal thing, and and then of course you wake up and there's lights everywhere, and there's fans screaming, and it's a very strange experience. To try and have someone be, like, rational in that moment is probably kind of a tall order, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's like your computer's still rebooting and you're trying to pull up files.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
It's not going to be pretty. I think a lot of people enjoyed the interview anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it definitely had a whole lot of entertainment value.
Yeah. And I think you're getting, like, two types of fans these days with the UFC. You're getting the martial arts fans and you're getting the entertainment fans who are just watching it for entertainment. Especially like with guys like, you know, Conor coming in, bringing a whole new wave of people who really, maybe just because they're new to the game and they don't really understand all the ins and outs, and maybe they never practiced martial arts themselves, but they're really kind of watching it almost like it's wrestling. You know, it's the type of fans who, when you talk about the big fights, they're like, oh, it's all fixed, it's all for show, everything's predetermined, and they say things like, oh, boxing won't let this guy win, and Vegas won't let that guy win, and you hear that type of stuff. And while maybe that there's a very small sliver of truth to that, they're really thinking it's all, they're really in it for the entertainment. You know, they're really in it for the drama and the kind of glitz and the glam side of the game. So there's, you know, you've got those two types of fans. and a lot of people are both. But people are really drawn to that, to the raw emotion and the raw drama part of the game. You know, two guys going in a ring and putting their heart on the line and their reputation and essentially their manlyhood on the line, and one of them has to lose. And sometimes these guys lose bad, and people are fascinated by that.
Yes. Interesting thing. So obviously it was the left kick that ended the fight, and Jones talked about this in one of their pre-fight interviews. He goes, you know, we noticed some very, 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 very interesting like tendencies that Cormier has. And if you go back and you look at the Anthony Rumble Johnson fight, the second one, the one that just passed, Rumble kind of grazed him and almost caught him like two or three times, bending over with that left kick.
And that kick, well, Jones is got 6 inches on whatever, on Rumble, or at least a few. And B, Rumble's high kick, especially in that fight, was a very it wasn't a very polished high kick. It was kind of almost a panic high kick. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a very well drilled high kick like you see with Jones and what's his coach's name? Winklejohn,
yeah.
Winklejohn, yeah. Rick Van Winkle, whatever. You know, they drill. You know, you can see they drill things to death, and they game plan things to death, and they are completely on point. So they probably saw that in the Rumble fight, and they realized, you know what? If we just clean this up a bit, what Rumble was doing, and polish this up and had it in our back pocket, we might get lucky and he might give it to us, and I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Jones was digging to the body a lot. He was, teep kicking to the body a lot. He was hooking to the body a lot. He wasn't doing a lot of headshots with his striking. Like, he would throw like a cross over the top here, but he wasn't doing a lot of head hunting. He was really softening up that body, bringing down his hands, kind of training him that what I'm trying to do is go for your body. And I think Cormier got kind of caught up, like doing better and, being more aggressive and putting on that pressure, and kind of got caught into following Jones as opposed to just pressuring him and cutting him off. And then Jones, just fucking saw that moment and just came over. Boop! Yeah, man. What do you think about Jones calling out Brock Lesnar, and what do you think his next fight should be?
I was about to say, like, I was going to actually ask you a question. Let's get on to Jones Lesnar in a second. Say he stays in light heavyweight. Pretty much everyone is shorter than him, apart from Gustafsson. When we saw he had problems with Gustafsson, so that would probably be an interesting rematch. But say he keeps getting these, essentially shorter fighters. What do they do? Because you were mentioning how Jones was softening up the body and then going to the head. I'm wondering, do people? Cormier himself was headhunting pretty much the whole time. From my memory, he was really going for those long shots, and I think he did a good job. He did catch him a few times, but it didn't really work. Maybe if he'd gone to the body a bit first, softened him up, and then gone to the head, it might have worked better. Just generally, like in boxing, the shorter fighters tend to do better by working the body first. Mm-hmm. Do you see anyone? How do you see a shorter fighter beating Jones?
It's such a hard thing to do because of Jones's wrestling background. Like typically the shorter fighter kind of boxes his way into the clinch and then into the takedown. That's generally what you see, but nobody can really fuck with Jones wrestling at light heavy. So you're stuck in this place where either A, I stay long range, which Jones is fucking A1 at the long range.
I don't know anyone.
B, I try to clinch with him, in which case his wrestling and athleticism is just through the roof. Or C, I stay somewhere in that middle range. And that's kind of been Cormier's best bet, was kind of staying in that middle range, clinching here and there with some dirty boxing and uppercuts, but staying right in that middle. That was his best bet. I just don't see anybody other than Gustafsson who can really challenge him. Now, Anthony Rumble Johnson is talking about maybe coming out of retirement to fight Jones because, as he put it, if I had landed some of those shots Cormier was landing, then, Jones would be out. But if Cormier out-wrestled you, I'm sorry, bro, but I don't see you doing too good against... I want to see the fight.
I don't think that was Rumble at his best, though. Honestly, I don't know, maybe I'm a big Rumble fan or whatever, but I feel like he has a lot more. I mean, look what he did to Gustafsson.
True.
I don't know. Let's see if he can come back better and stronger. But you're right. If he is anywhere like he was against Cormier, then Jones will make pretty easy work of it.
Yeah, for sure. I think the ranking or the listing as far as who Jones should fight next should go Gustafsson, Rumble if he decides to return and they accept him on his return, and then worry about calling out Brock.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so let's get on to Brock. What do you think is going on?
I think Brock Lesnar is obviously an athletic freak. He's a humongous ogre of a man. And he doesn't necessarily, outside of his wrestling, his athleticism, and his size, he doesn't have too much to offer technically. So what he's doing is, I'm going to go ahead, I don't want to be a full-time fighter and be getting punched around all the fucking time. And I like my roids. So what I'm going to do is
I'm not giving that shit up.
No. I got to keep that in my back pocket. So I'm going to just fuck with this WWF, WWE shit. Go ahead and get roided up. And then once a year, once every other year, once every blue moon, I'll come back for a freak show fight. And, hey, look, I haven't been a signed contractor, so you can't really get on me for juicing because I'm doing this other thing over here. And then I'll be juiced up to the gills when I come back, get this one fight, make a payday, and then go back to juicing and doing my fucking wrestling shit.
Yeah, I think we should just call it the SFC.
Yes.
Super Fight Championship. Maybe change it to UFC, or maybe Freak Show Fight Championship. You just have a separate division.
Yes.
With no weight classes, and they can dip their hands in the broken glass. What was that movie? Kickboxing?
Yes.
Yeah, one of those things. They have flaming rings and electrified fences.
Hell yeah. Fucking have, Conor McGregor versus Struve, Stefan Struve.
Conor versus Brock, yeah.
I think it's totally, that's a good idea. They should definitely have that. Maybe get a Mighty Mouse versus no, not Mighty Mouse. Pick someone maybe a little bit smaller. Get a, what's his name? Dwayne Johnson. Not Dwayne Johnson. That's The Rock. What's the little short dude's name that's always fighting Mighty Mouse? He smiles all the fucking time. Dotson.
Oh, Dotson. Yeah.
Maybe Dotson versus Cyborg.
Yeah, Dotson and Mighty Mouse versus The Rock.
Yes. We need to call Dana and make that happen.
we couldn't too far understand it. Okay, so why did Jones give that any credence? He want to prove that he can fight a bigger guy, and then he knows that. Because I think a lot of people are whispering, and I'm one of these people, honestly, that Jones is amazing at light heavyweight and really kind of untouchable because most of the light heavyweights don't have the height and the reach to beat him. But he's kind of in that position where he really should maybe think about moving up. And Brock is kind of a good introduction to the heavyweight class because he's not a real fighter. Yeah,
well, see, here's the interesting thing because Jones mentioned, being interested in taking a heavyweight fight, but only fighting a smaller heavyweight, right? Which Brock is definitely not.
Right.
So
right. He's a less skilled heavyweight.
Right. And so I think Jones is aware that maybe at least to get his feet wet, he needs to find a heavyweight who's appropriate for him. So either A skilled heavyweight who's closer to my weight, or B, give me a big heavyweight like Brock who's not very technical and not on the same level as a fighter as most of us are.
Yeah. Now, in that case, I would be down. I'd be supportive. If his plan was to maybe make a run at heavyweight and to shake that weight class up, then I would support it. I think he's a good, what's the word, gatekeeper. I think Brock is kind of a good gatekeeper in that regard. I mean, I don't like Brock that much. I really don't like people who juice. Listen, if everyone juices, fine, but don't be the only person to juice. And I think he kind of pissed on the UFC a little bit when he just roided it up, went in there, beat the fuck out of Mark Hunt, and then left. And he was like, I didn't care if I wanted to juice. I got enough money. I didn't need your money anyway.
Right.
And I didn't give a shit. I was going to beat someone. But having said that, I do think that that would be an interesting fight, and it would be interesting to see Jones against Lesnar.
I know we've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I think another good entrance fight for Jones would be Stefan Struve. Another tall, lanky guy. Stefan Struve is taller, but Jones has, I think, half an inch to an inch of reach advantage over him. Stefan Struve is not especially technical on the stand-up. Usually that's where he gets fucked up. And I think that would be a good...
He is a stand and bang fighter, isn't he?
Yeah, like he will throw down, but it's not like when you see him, he's you can't be like, oh, well, boxing is his strong suit, or, kickboxing is his strong suit.
Yeah.
I think if anything, his jiu-jitsu might be his strongest attribute, but he's not a guy who you're like, oh yeah, let's top 10 technical fighters in the UFC. Stefan Struve sure as fuck isn't coming up.
Yeah, that's true. That's similar to Brock in that manner, in that regard. It's like definitely got the size. He definitely loses the size advantage with both of those dudes, but he definitely has the skill advantage. So they'd be both good kind of intro heavyweight 101 fights for him.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see him make a run at that weight class. I think he's really outgrown the light heavyweight.
Yeah, for sure.
Barring Gustafsson, though. Because Gustafsson's on a pretty good one.
Yeah.
He did a beautiful job of, who was it? Teixeira?
Yep.
That was amazing. So, that would also be a good fight.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Lawler versus Cerrone, what did you think about that?
I loved it, man. I thought it was a great fight. Lawler was the definite winner from what I saw, but it was a really good fight, and I'm happy to see Lawler back, confident, like brawling, banging again.
Yeah. Initially, I actually thought Cerrone won it, and then I had to go back and watch it again. And, having seen it a second time, I agree. I think it was a competitive fight. It was an exciting fight.
Yeah,
Cerrone had a lot of good moments, but I understand the decision for Lawler.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. What weight class were they at?
That was welter.
That was welter.
Yes.
So Cerrone went back up to welter.
Yes, Cerrone back. Honestly, I really like Cerrone at welterweight.
Yeah?
Yeah. He looks just more solid, looks more threatening, and he seems to be, in my opinion, a little bit more takedown heavy at welterweight for whatever reason.
Interesting. Yeah, because his jiu, off his back, he's amazing. I think he's very underrated, I think, off of his back, and his kickboxing is one knows about. But I think the wrestling's probably, his takedown's probably a new side of the game that people don't. He has potential to be a really great UFC fighter, but it always seems to be like, just when he gets to a higher level, he just falls off a little bit.
Yeah. There's some rumors going around that they want to do Masvidal versus Lawler, which I think is a wonderful matchup.
Yeah. Oh, Masvidal was what's his recent one? What's his recent record?
Cerrone. He beat Cerrone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that he finished that fight?
Yeah, he stopped Cerrone. He KO'd him.
Oh yeah. Well then. He did what Lawler couldn't do.
Let's see. He stopped Cerrone, and then he just lost to Maia.
Interesting. And then Maia lost to Woodley as well.
Yes.
That's an interesting weight class. Then there's a whole bunch of shifting things going on in that weight class.
Yeah. And speaking of Maia losing to Woodley, fucking A, Woodley back at it again with the boring ass fights.
Yeah. It seems that there's been a shift recently that whereas people used to have a lot of patience for winners, like no one really, like, apart from me, I've always been more like, I think a fighter is an entertainer. I don't think a fighter is there to win or lose. I think they're there to entertain. You know, that can go too far, obviously. You have to be, you have to win a fight. But like, we're paying not to see people win or lose, but we're paying to see a good display of fighting, a good display of skill, and good, something entertaining. Having said that, for a while you had like guys like GSP and Jon Jones and people who were really just out to win, and they would win and win and win, and they were honestly, they were boring. I used to find GSP very boring. I used to find Jon Jones boring, but no one said anything at the time. This was maybe 5-6 years ago, and now Woodley, honestly, I don't feel bad for him. I wouldn't go that far, but had he been around 5-6 years ago, I think he would have been fine. But I don't think nowadays you can play it so safe. People are aware. They know that whether you're playing to win and not take risks, or you're putting it all out there, and they don't have the patience for boring winners anymore. Because I think Woodley's a winner. I think he's great. He wins all his fights, never loses. He plays a great game plan. He sticks to his strengths, which is wrestling and wouldn't even call it boxing, but just like smashing people in the face. And he does it well, but he's not that entertaining. He doesn't take the risk.
So, okay, I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. Here's why I agree with you. 5-7 years ago or so, you didn't have entertainment figures in the UFC like you do now. So you kind of had the beginning of it with Chael Sonnen. Now you have, the next evolution of it with Conor McGregor. And now you're seeing more and more fighters trying to take that route. So the expectation of a fighter being an entertainer has become a much more ingrained part of the sport. So in that sense, yes, I do agree with you that people were more patient.
Do you mean in or out of the ring? Or both?
Both. I think when people see the fighter being entertaining during press conferences, they kind of expect that to translate in the ring as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody wants to see a guy talk a lot of shit and be really exciting during the press conference and then be boring in the ring. Like, people expect that to overlap each other.
Yeah. So,
in that sense, I do agree that there was more patience before. Here's where I disagree with you. And I think this is very Woodley specific. And this goes to what we were talking about earlier about people not liking a weak champion. People are turned off by a weak champion. And let me give Woodley, first of all, his due respect. Considering who he was fighting, considering that he's fighting Demian Maia, right? The idea of not aggressively coming in with strikes, the idea of constantly backing out and circling away and just forcing Maia to shoot in from long distances and then counter punching him and stuffing takedowns is an excellent game plan. I think it's probably the only game plan that's really, really, really going to shut down Maia. So in that sense, good job for Woodley. And if that was the only fight that he had that was like that, or one of the only fights that he had that was like that, then I would be like, okay, it was just a game plan issue. That's it. But Woodley has now developed a reputation for being that guy, for being the guy who fucking backs himself up against the cage and spends the majority of his time just circling away, waiting for an opening, and then that's about it, and then somewhere maybe exploding and landing something. You cannot complain. The UFC is racist and won't promote me because I'm black, but then you don't give the fans anything to look forward to, nor the company anything to promote. What is that?
Yeah, I didn't actually hear him say that. I didn't realize he said that.
Oh yeah, that like this has been a thing for a little while now of him like, you know, this is racism, this is the fans are racist or the company is racist, I'm not being promoted because they don't want a black champion. Like all of this kind of shit, which if you are the guy who's got a fucking knockout highlight reel over your last 4 or 5 fights and you're just that dude.
Nobody cares what color you are, yeah. Nobody cares.
And then they're not promoting you? Maybe you could say that. But how is this commercial going to look? Coming up, UFC 218. Come watch a buff guy back himself up for 23 out of 25 minutes. Maybe throw 4 punches and then go to decision. Like no one's going to watch that shit.
Yeah. I think he should get his head more into honing his craft. He's just not that good a martial artist. You know, he's a great competitor, athlete. You know, he's a great wrestler. He can hit super hard. You know, he's probably got the best bench press and deadlifts in the UFC. But he's very two-dimensional, and it's pretty. Yeah, it's not that interesting to watch. But in his defense, I mean, he did. How long ago was Lawler and? You know, that first fight against Thompson, not the second one, but the first one against Thompson, I found both of those fights extremely entertaining. So it wasn't that long ago that he had some good fights.
I don't know, man. The Woodley Thompson 2 was boring to me. It had a few moments.
No, the second one was boring. Yeah.
The second one was boring. The first one was okay. There was some times where I was like, oh shit, okay, like things are going down. He took Thompson down. He was able to get some vicious ground and pound. There were a couple moments where he stunned Thompson, and then you got to see him like go into beast mode. But there's just so much filler of him waiting for that moment to get a big shot and stun somebody that you end up spending like 22 minutes out of a 25-minute fight of him just waiting for his opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting. He plays a counter-fighter game, but he's not a counter-fighter. He's in a strange position. He just hits really fucking hard, and then but he doesn't open people up and get them to. Yeah, he doesn't get them to open up so he can counter.
Yes.
He's a clever counter fighter, but he kind of wishes he was a clever counter fighter. And I think if he worked on his boxing, I think if he really like focused on his boxing and learned, you know, the tricks of the trade, as it were, he could be a good champion. I think he could be great, but he's really gone. He's a bit of a one-trick pony, and we've all seen that trick, and I think he needs to learn a few more. He needs to put some more weapons in his arsenal. He doesn't have that many weapons. He has that overhand right, and you can't take. He has the overhand right, that's it.
He has the overhand right, and his wrestling, if he decides to use it, which he generally doesn't, and you made the point being the one-trick pony.
Other people take them.
Exactly. And I think that's where him and GSP differ. For all of the wrestle fucking that GSP does, and all of the playing it safe and going to the decision, GSP throws a lot of shit out there. You'll catch a spinning side kick. You'll catch GSP aggressively looking for the takedown. You'll catch some jabs. You'll catch a Superman punch. You'll catch a this and a that. And even though he's not a finisher in that sense, he plays to not lose and to win. He will at least keep you guessing as to what you're going to see next. Woodley, you know exactly what the fuck you're going to see. Stand against the cage, circle out, wait for an opportunity to throw a big bomb, stuff a takedown, wait for an opportunity, maybe turn the guy against the fence and look for a takedown, circle away, look for the overhand, circle away, like you know what you're going to look for.
Yeah, that's true. But I still like seeing those huge fucking bombs that he throws sometimes. The one he threw against Koscheck back in the day, just the force he generates and how hard he hits people. I don't know, I still have an ounce of respect for him, even though he's pretty boring. You know?
Oh yeah, like don't get me wrong. As a fighter, as an athlete, or not, let me rephrase that. As an athlete and what he possesses in his potential, what he could potentially do, you got to respect it and you have to be in awe of it. But he's like, you know, a guy who has $1 million and is just fucking eating top ramen every day. It's like, why?
No, yeah. I think it really, again, fighters really, especially now, really have to embrace the fact that they are in the sport to entertain. They're really in the sport to entertain, and you have to hone your craft. You can't make one. You're an artist, right? You're a mixed martial artist. That's literally what you are. And if you're an artist, you can't just make one painting that's amazing and rest on that for the rest of eternity, and then expect people to say you're great. And then if people don't say you're great, say, oh well, I get it because I'm black or I'm white or I'm whatever, you know. Then pull out some other political thing. You really have to continuously hone your craft. You have to continuously add new styles. You know, that's what being great is all about. It's that kind of constant evolution, new element to the game. You know, that you don't really that volatility as a fighter, that unpredictability as a fighter. That's what we want to see. You know, we want to see something that we want to be shocked and surprised. You know, it's across the board. That's art. That's, you know, anything. Being entertained and having respect and love for people, you have to be willing to kind of shock and surprise people.
Yeah, man. I think you're dead on with that.
It's also, just to add another point, you do see it with champions a lot, though.
Mm-hmm.
Once someone becomes a champion, there's the dynamic of chasing, the thrill of the chase, and the energy and the passion that people have to get to the top of the mountain fades, and then retaining your position as, you know, king of the castle becomes your priority, and you lose that specialness and you lose a special something. And that's why I think you see these super fights happening. You see Conor chasing these absolutely crazy things because it keeps him motivated. It keeps him and Jon Jones, you know, picking Brock Lesnar. It keeps things fresh for them.
Right.
And as a mixed martial artist, they can bring something completely new to the table. You know, Conor can work his hand, he can leave his, you know, the rest of it, you know, MMA game alone and just work on his hands and bring something new to the table. And Jon Jones can do the same thing with Brock Lesnar. So it's keeping things fresh and interesting is a constant challenge, especially when you become a champion. Even harder.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. When you're pursuing the championship, when you're pursuing the belts, there is a level above you that is worth risking going out on your shield for. Once you get to the top, you're only risking, there's the risk of loss without the gain of benefit. So the only thing there is to do is just not lose, because you can't become like, you know, champion supreme third degree. It's just you're the champion and you have the belt, and now just don't lose the belt.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get any real accolades for defending your belt.
Yeah, man. So, real quick, two more things before we wrap it up. What did you think of the Cyborg Evinger fight?
I mean, I didn't think much. That was her first fight in the UFC, Bezel?
I don't know if that was Evinger's first fight in the UFC.
Cyborg, sorry.
Oh yes, no, that was Cyborg's, I think, second fight.
That was second fight. So I guess they're still it was a complete mismatch, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I think it was the intro. She looked good, Cyborg. She didn't look like. Sometimes I see her and she's so powerful and so aggressive that she's not loose. She's very stiff because she's just so hungry to knock someone out. She's like the destroyer, which is cool, fine, but it's not. It can be a weakness, you know. You can be so powerful that you can. The Brazilians do it a lot, you know. They just overpower and overwhelm their opponent, and then you get someone a little slipper counter fighter, and that might not work as well. But she looked a little bit more fluid. She looked a little bit more like kind of on the money, like a bit more with it. She took her time. She wasn't like rushing to this. So she looked good, but it was just a complete mismatch. I think that they're feeding the superstar that is Cyborg. They're building her, and that's what that fight was.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I agree with you. I totally agree it was a mismatch. Evinger really didn't have anything for her. You know, she managed to stay in the fight for a little while, but that's all she really managed to do. I think her next two fights, in my opinion, I would like them to bring back the chick from Australia. I think her name was Megan Anderson, if I remember correctly. But the little Australian chick, she was supposed to fight before the visa issues came up, and they ended up switching her with Evinger. And then after that, assuming she wins, which I believe she would, have a Holly Holmes versus Cyborg.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that will be an interesting fight.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a great, stylistically, I think that's a great fight. You can see it going both ways.
Yeah.
Like you can see Cyborg overpowering and overwhelming Holly and actually maybe even taking her down to nullify, because we know Holly's ground game just isn't as good as it hasn't been as good as it should be for the MMA. And just sort of overwhelming Holly Holm, but then you can also see Holly Holm catching Cyborg getting overzealous, getting sloppy, and Holly Holm just kind of just catching up.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think about this whole bullshit with well, that's not fair. I'm kind of leading the question. What do you think about this? What do you think about this thing with Micael Chiesa challenging Mario Yamasaki?
So, should we explain it for anyone? It's a bit more obscure. Maybe people haven't heard about it.
Okay, yes. So, recently, Micael Chiesa fights, what's his name, Lee? Help me out here. Kevin Lee. And it goes to the ground. Kevin Lee takes Chiesa's back. He sinks in a rear naked choke. It's a really fucking tight choke. The referee, Mario Yamasaki, calls it as, being a TKO or a finish for Kevin Lee. And Micael Chiesa challenges this, saying, well, no, I was still in it. I didn't tap. I could have gotten out of that. You called it too soon. This is overlooked by, whatever committee, and they decide, no, it's legit. We're going to leave it as is. It's an L for you, Chiesa. To which Micael Chiesa responds by challenging 50-something-year-old referee Mario Yamasaki to a grappling match.
The problem with like social media and just getting things over the internet, you don't know the tone of what someone says.
Okay.
What it's like. Like, I don't know. Is he joking? Or is he, serious? Because he's obviously a little butthurt about the whole situation. Ultimately, these referees are there to protect the fighters, and that is you're fighting time. It's not a fight to the death. Sorry, not the gladiator days. This isn't like old Roman times. If you think it is, then you're fooling yourself. It's not a gladiator. Like each fighter goes in there, and the referee's job is to make sure that they're healthy enough to fight again. You know, and to walk away and not get serious damage. You know, especially in the position that fighting sports are in now. You know, people are getting seriously hurt in the field. Anyway, whatever. They're there for the fighter's safety. And he called it as he saw it. Mario Yamasaki called it as he saw it. And maybe he did stop it early, maybe he didn't. But ultimately, you were in a position where he could have called it. It wasn't like it came out of nowhere. He had the rear naked choke. He had it in deep. He thinks he didn't. You know, he called it too early. And Mario Yamasaki did what he could in the moment. Mm-hmm. I get that you can complain about it, but then going out and calling out a 50-year-old referee to a grappling match is absurd. Is absolutely absurd, and you're lowering yourself.
Yep.
You're only hurting yourself. You're making yourself look. If I go pick a fight with a 7-year-old who called me a dickhead in the street, who looks bad? The 7-year-old with me. If I get in a fight with that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That might be an exaggeration, but if you go calling out 50-year-old men to combat, to martial arts combat, then you're basically putting yourself at the level of a 50-year-old man who doesn't compete in the sport and hasn't competed in the sport, and is the referee's absurd. I found that's a terrible choice for Michael Chiesa. I think the culture of UFC is people think that everyone should talk, like, because of the new wave of fighters, and they're talking a lot more, and there's a lot more glitz and glamour, and like we've mentioned, everyone thinks they're Muhammad Ali now, or Conor McGregor. They think that and just some people can't do it. They just don't have the mouth, they don't have the mind for it, and they get themselves in trouble. This is a prime example of when someone's Twitter account or whatever it is should be disabled, you know?
Yeah.
They should have a PR person checking everything they say and just Xing stuff, because that makes him look really, really bad.
Yeah, you know, and this isn't the first time. This is actually the second time, I think, this year where Chiesa has really come across like a 13-year-old douche. Like, there was his fight leading up to the fight with Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee makes some statement about, I'm not going to talk, or, we're sitting here going back and forth in the press conference, but come such and such date, we're going to get down, and, your mom's going to be in the audience, and your family's going to be in the audience, and then we're going to see what's up. And Chiesa gets up and is like, don't you ever fucking talk about my mom! And, runs up, and they get into a scuffle. It's like, what are you fucking doing, dude? You're coming across as and even Mario Yamasaki called this. He's like, this is immature. You're coming across very, very childish, and it's just a bad look. It's a bad look for you. It's a bad look for the sport. It's just all bad.
Yeah, it's bad for everyone involved. There's no winners in this situation.
Yeah, man.
But I think it comes from just the new kind of culture of combat sports where everyone wants to talk a lot. And why does it combat sports, just culture and life in general? Now, everyone wants to talk, everyone wants to be heard, everyone wants to express themselves publicly, or maybe that should have been a conversation between just two dudes in a room somewhere. Everything gets so publicized. You have to have an added level of awareness and an added level of poise. Just know what's coming out of your mouth. And some of these dudes, I mean, to be fair, they're fighters, they're not politicians, but still, the new part of fighting is you need to be able to talk and not talk.
Right.
Because I really don't think it's good for people's career when they start talking bollocks like that.
Yeah, and it's this isn't gonna let's say hypothetically Mario Yamasaki and Chiesa get down. They have this jiu-jitsu tournament, and Chiesa fucking super somersault flying arm bars Mario Yamasaki. What does that prove about the fight that you had? That doesn't prove anything.
Yeah. And that was Yamasaki's point.
And there's no point other than I'm mad, so now I want to fight you. Like that's really all there is to it. And as you mentioned, dude, is there a possibility that he could have gotten out of that choke? Yes, that is a thing that is possible. It is not like against the laws of physics. Something could have happened, but that choke was fucking in there deep. And as far as I could tell, he wasn't getting out of that. If you hadn't let the fight get to that position, then Mario could have never made that call. So who is ultimately to blame here?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. You got yourself into that position. It's like when guys get to a close 5-round decision and then they get really upset when they lose that because they thought they win. Dude, I mean, ultimately you put it in their hands.
Yeah.
You know, don't get put in that position if you're. I get why you're upset. I mean, you know, you're putting your pride on the line or whatever, but little humbleness and grace in defeat, like, especially if you pretty much did kind of lose that fight anyway. You would have lost that fight whether it had been called or not. If anything, he potentially saved him from embarrassment of the dude being out cold.
Right.
Of Chiesa being out cold. So I don't know what he thought about.
Yeah, man. Well, look, that said, brother, we're at like 57 minutes. We're about to come up on a full hour. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Do you have anything you want to say or you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, we good. Leave it at that.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. Liron, as usual, thank you for joining me. Peace out, everybody.
Thank you.